Hello everyone, I'm going to explain the poem Telephone Conversation by Wallace Soyinka. So let us start by giving you a brief biography of the poet. Soyinka was born in the year 1934 in Nigeria. He was a poet, playwright and essayist. He completed his education from the University of Leeds, UK, and later became a professor in different universities in Nigeria, UK and USA. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1986 and was the first African to win the award in this category. His work has often been described as a strong agent of change. He was very much involved in the political history of his nation and was a strong advocate of equality and democracy. As a youngster, he was well aware of the racial tensions which existed in colonial Africa. And later, when he went to UK, he could also feel the racial discrimination which still existed in the Western world. So this particular poem, Telephone Conversation, first appeared in the collection called Modern Poetry from Africa, which was published in the year 1963. It is a biting satire against the racial attitudes of the whites in the Western world. In this poem, he uses the subtleties of irony and sarcasm rather than anger and frustration to expose the veneer of racism behind the social civility of the Western world. So let us start the poem. Telephone Conversation by Wallace Soyinka. The price seemed reasonable, location indifferent. The landlady swore she lived off premises. Nothing remained but self-confession. Madam, I won. I hate a wasted journey. I am African. So the poem starts with a telephone conversation between an African man and a white landlady who had accommodation for rent. So the narrator is quite pleased with the price, with the location of the accommodation, and he was particularly happy that the landlady did not live in the premises, which would give him privacy. But he had one information which he wanted to give to the landlady. Look at the words he uses. Nothing remained but self-confession. Madam, I won. I hate a wasted journey. I am African. So he uses the word confession to declare that he was an African. He uses the word in an ironic sense to mean that as if it was an offense to be an African. And he also uses the word warned. And he says that I don't want to make a wasted journey, in the sense that he would go all the way to the house and would be rejected because of his skin color. Because he was well aware that access to public spaces was limited for a man of color. So this information which the narrator provides the landlady unsettles the woman. She's clearly unwilling to rent her house to a man of color, and at the same time she's unwilling to expose her racial prejudices, and she's unable to respond immediately, and there is silence from her end. This leads to the narrator to imagine that she's a woman from the higher classes of society, and her lips are lipstick coated, and she's smoking from a gold rolled cigarette holder, which indicates her artificiality and affectation and snobbery. And then finally, when she speaks, he's totally shocked at the blatant racial question that she asks. She says, "How dark? I had not misread. Are you light or very dark?" So she asks the question that how dark are you? Are you light or very dark? Initially he thought that he had misheard. But then when she repeats that are you light or very dark, the reality seeps in. And he feels that as if he has been reduced to a button in a phone. In a public booth, when you make a call, there are various buttons on the phone which you have to press before making the call. So he says button B, button A, stench of rancid breath of public hide and speak, red boot, red pillar box, red double-tired omnibus squelching tar. So he feels that he was indulging in a verbal hide and seek, and he looks around and he can see everything red boot, red pillar box, red double-tired omnibus squelching tar. Pillar box is a post box, and the color repetition of the color red indicates how angry he was. But even though he was angry and offended at her question, he does not reveal his anger. Instead, he decides to outwit her with his intelligence using irony and sarcasm. So when she does not get any answer from him, she again repeats, "Are you dark or very light?" So the conversation slips into irony, and first he compares himself to a chocolate, whether his complexion was like plain chocolate or milk chocolate, and then in a very intelligent manner he declares his color is West African sepia. He knew that this term would further confuse the lady, because he was very much aware that she will not be able to comprehend the meaning of the term. So when he says, exactly she responds and she says, "What's that? Don't know what that is." So she is totally confused what West African sepia means. Actually, West African sepia is a reddish brown color, but it was too critical a term for her to comprehend, and he replies that it's like brunette. So he was like trying to outwit her with irony and sarcasm, and he was actually making fun of her. "Not altogether. Facially I am brunette, but madam, you could see the rest of me. Palm of my hand, soles of my feet are a peroxide blonde. Friction caused foolishly, madam, by sitting down has turned my bottom raven black. One moment, madam," sensing her receiver rearing on the thunderclap about my ears. "Madam," I pleaded, "wouldn't you rather see for yourself?" So instead of giving her a clear answer regarding the shade of his skin tone, he confuses her further by mentioning the different colors of his body. He says he's simultaneously brunette in his face. Facially he's brunette, the color of his face is very brown, but on the other hand the soles of his feet and the palms of his hand are white. They are peroxide blonde. And then he says his bottom is raven black, which has been caused due to fiction. And the lady finally realizes that she's being mocked, and she's about to keep the receiver, and at this crucial juncture the narrator makes a desperate plea. "Madam," I pleaded, "wouldn't you rather see for yourself?" He says, wouldn't you see all the colors of my body and then decide? So this is how the poem ends. So what the poet wants to tell us is that race is much more complex than a binary choice between light or dark. He wants to comment on the absurdity of judging a person based on the skin tone. And he makes a strong statement against racial discrimination. So this explanation is also supported by a study material which is there in the college portal. Thank you.